Welcome to another episode of the Sipping and Tripping podcast, where we connect with amazing people. Today's topic is investing in others and also the experience as a military spouse. I am your host, Desmond Black, and the person that's sipping and tripping with me today is someone who puts on medical conferences, someone who successfully ran her own event and marketing firm for 10 years. She is a mother of four, and her most recent achievement is the Family in Flight, in which she'll break down for us a little bit later on in the show. She is none other than Miss Chelsea Thomas. It's an honor, privilege, and a pleasure to have you on the show today. How are you, and how was your weekend?
Hi, thanks for having me. I am doing great. I'm excited to be here, excited to chat with you. And my weekend has been good, although it's been extremely rainy where I was. And like 20 minutes before you were like, hey, jump on, my power went out. So,
Oh,
we're always left on our toes over here.
yeah. And where's that? Where are you from?
So that is a very loaded question. I live part-time in Tampa, Florida, and then the other part, which is where I'm at right now, is in Columbus, Mississippi, because my husband is stationed up here. So I travel between the two about every other week. So right now it's Columbus.
Interesting. See, that's so it's crazy. I had my younger brother. He was in the military,
Okay.
for a while, and for him, it was great. I don't want to take that from him
Mhm.
because I can't really speak for anybody but myself. But it was great, except for when he decided to get married,
Mhm.
and and that was difficult for him. And like I said, we'll touch
Yeah.
bases on that a little bit more, through your lens a little bit
Yeah.
later. But I know, so for the most part, he was in the military. He was happy. Everything was cool. He was okay with not being around friends and family.
Hmm.
Uh, but when he was on leave at one point, he was down this way, and he met a woman. He caught feelings for her, and he went back to the military, obviously, because he was, he
Hmm.
had to go back. And she had money, so she used to come visit him whether he was in Japan or no matter where he
Oh my
was,
gosh.
which I thought was a great life. You with
Yeah.
somebody that has the money and they can afford to come see you. But it got to a point where he wanted to get married to her, and I'm not somebody that's going to tell somebody not to do something, but I was
Hmm.
telling him like, listen, maybe you should hold off on the marriage thing until you have that
Yeah.
live-in experience first. But make a long story short, he got out of the military because he couldn't stand being away from his wife. Um,
Yeah.
now he had an honorable discharge. However he worked that
Okay.
out. He was always saying, "Oh, my back hurt, my back hurt," but they give him an
Yeah.
honorable discharge, so that's good.
Yeah.
Because dishonorable is no bueno.
I
But
know.
yeah, the crazy thing is once he got out the military and they was living together for like 6 months. I don't know what happened. It was just like he was like, "Yeah, this ain't gonna
Uh-oh.
work," and I was like, I wanted so bad to be like, I told
I
you to
told
hold
you.
off, but I always hated when people do that to me. So I know if it don't apply to me, if it ain't my
Yeah.
life, I know when to walk away from the situation. But yeah, it was difficult. But I think part of that was she was like 16 years older than him,
Oh my gosh.
and I think for the most part, it came down to the things that he wanted to do, she no longer wanted to do. Because I
Yeah.
know at times she used to say, "Oh, I lived those years when
Mhm.
I did X, Y, and Z, and I'm no longer at that point at this stage of my life." And he often used to tell her, like, "I feel like you're taking my youth away, or trying to, anyways."
Yeah.
And so I think for the most part, I think that's why it wasn't successful. I
Yeah.
know they
Well,
were being friends for a long time.
that
Go ahead.
generational gap is so aggressive too. Like that's like a whole wide range of likes and
Yeah,
dislikes even. Like forget what you want to do and what you don't want to do. It's
right, right.
different across so many different platforms even.
All right. And, it's crazy. I thought about that when he was going through the motions. But at the same time, if you met his ex wife, she didn't act her age. She was like she acted his age or younger, and like she was a joy to be around. She was a good person.
Yeah.
So I think that's what he was attracted to. So
Yeah.
she's a good person.
Well, everybody's
Um,
there for a time and a season, right? So I'm sure it was great that he had support while he was traveling around.
right, right, right. All right. So on my platform, I like to conversate, educate, and entertain, and and I hope by the end of this, everybody gets something out of this, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: where were you born and where did you grow up?
So I was actually born in Orlando, Florida, and grew up in Tampa. So I'm a true Floridian. I've been there since day one. And since that's still our permanent residency, that's where I'm still from. So we're going to count that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I was just about to say that when you said Florida. I'm like, dang, she lived her whole life in Florida for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I mean,
have. It's
for
hot
the
and
most part,
rainy.
I've been in Jersey. I mean, I was born in Jersey. I moved to Delaware, moved back to Jersey, moved to North Carolina, and I've been back in Jersey since 2003. And so
Yeah,
yeah, I
pretty
can
much your
somewhat
whole
relate.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the majority of my life.
Yeah, it
Uh,
counts.
so do you have any siblings?
I have yes, actually. So I have one biological brother and he is living his best life in North Carolina. And then I have two stepsisters because my dad just got married this past December and they are
Oh wow.
in Florida as well and in Des Moines, Iowa, which I don't know why they're there, but that's where they are.
Right, right.
Uh,
Wow. Okay. So
mhm.
married,
Yeah.
just got married. Mm, I
Yeah,
can imagine.
so it was a journey, not to like bring the podcast down, but my mom passed away. But then my dad, beautiful, beautiful story. My mom passed away, and 6 months later, her best friend's husband also, both of them tragically, unexpectedly passed away. And it was
Mm,
like this crazy, nobody knew what to do. And so she and my dad, the wife who was survived, she and my dad kind of connected just on like, the loss and the grief and the unexpectedness of both. And then it turned into this beautiful relationship. And I mean, we all knew each other and loved each other because we all hung out and we were all good friends and family. And then they decided to get married. So I don't know how many years later, but yeah, they just officially made it official in December. So we're super excited to have her as actual family now.
right. That's great, man. Family is
Yeah.
important, and I love when
Oh,
people
yeah.
they're able to connect and create that bond.
Hmm.
Because we all need people in our lives, somebody
Yeah.
that can be that ear or that shoulder. That's very important, and to
Hmm.
know a lot of people take that for granted, but it's very important.
Uh,
Um,
well, and two, I mean, just in that situation to have somebody who has just gone through an unexpected loss to then help you be like, "Hey, I'm 6 months ahead of you. Here's where I'm at, here's kind of what to expect and stuff." They were really helpful to each other, which was, I as a daughter, I really appreciated that for my dad to have someone as well.
right, right. Now you mentioned North Carolina. What part of North Carolina?
He's in Asheville, my brother is.
Asheville. Okay, okay. I've been to
Mhm.
Asheville. So, like I said, I lived in
Yeah.
North Carolina for 5 years. So when I was living there, I was in Chapel Hill,
Okay.
right down the street from
Beautiful.
the UNC. Now, most of the people on my father's side of the family, they live and they was born in North Carolina. So I've been to Roxborough, Charlotte, Greensboro,
Oh,
Raleigh, Durham.
goodness.
Like I've
Yeah.
been all over North Carolina. It's just about every town in North Carolina I've been. And it's great. Like I know when I moved there, I didn't want to leave Jersey because down south is slower.
Oh, yeah.
But after a while, I was a kid at the time.
Mm.
Out of my control. After a while, it's just like you can't do nothing about it, and I started to
Oh.
fall in love with North Carolina.
Mhm.
Um, and then moving back to Jersey, I'm like, listen, I couldn't live. I could visit because I visit every year, but I
Yeah.
couldn't live in North Carolina. Not right now. I would have to be
Yeah.
older, right? I feel like down south is one of those things when you get older and you
Mhm.
want to settle down
Yeah.
and you're not worried about doing too much.
Mhm.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Welcome to Florida, that's where everybody goes. We have everybody who has
And
decided to settle down in Florida.
I've been told that Florida is highly expensive.
Oh, yeah, it's insane. I don't get why people keep moving down here. Also, it's hot. Go away. Stay. You're making it hotter by being here.
I love that. I mean, Jersey gets hot too, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it gets hot as Florida or anything like that. But yeah, and
Ugh.
it's crazy. I've been to 17 states and I've never been to Florida, man. So
Oh,
I
well,
definitely gotta
yeah, make your way down. It's beautiful. I'll give you all the recommendations and places to go.
appreciate you. Let me see. So you're currently married. How long have you been married?
Mhm. It will be 5 years in November.
Okay, that's good.
Mhm.
Okay, so y'all keep pushing. That's good. So
Yeah.
how long have you been a military spouse? Put it that way.
So We met back in 2018. So we dated for 2 years, and what's funny is at the time I was on the dating apps and doing all the things because was recently divorced and single mom of 2 kids, and what you gonna do? And I worked down by the military base in Tampa, and I just kept swiping no on all the military guys because I was like, "This is not my life. I don't want military. I have 0 desire, and I have kids." So I was like, "I can't move from Florida. Everybody in military's gotta move. This is not for me." And somehow I always joke, Jesus was like, "Y'all are together and you're meant to be together," because he snuck through, had no idea he was military, and then fell madly in love with him. And then 2 years later, we got married during COVID. And then he was home for, let's see, 2 years before he left for training and has basically been gone ever since. So we've been living apart for 3 years now. So it's
So
been a
had
journey.
had you known he was in the military, would you have still like stayed in a relationship? Because I know you said in the beginning, right? Like you didn't know when you decided to start talking, right?
Well, no. So I had, I guess, swiped yes on him apparently.
Oh,
And
okay.
then we were talking and he was really good at conversation and it was really awesome. And he very sweetly asked me out on our first date and it was very romantic on the beach and all these cute things. But by then I did know he was military and I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. Like, what's the odds that this is going to be like the one? And here we are.
Right, right. That's
He was the
great.
one.
So you had mentioned God, right? Are you religious?
Mhm. Yes. Yep.
Mm,
Full Christian. Mhm.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I would say since I've been doing this, I think I want to say like June of last year, and I always ask that question for the first time guest, right? And I believe that you're the first person to say you're religious.
Really?
Yes.
Oh
So
my gosh.
like 60 guests or so, give or take.
Wow.
Most of them either say they're not religious or they're spiritual and not religious. So
Okay.
you have made history today.
Check me out.
Uh, so
Mark it down in history. June 29th.
so what do you like to do in your spare time?
Oh, well, it's hard to say because I don't have a lot of spare time between children and traveling back and forth.
Right.
What I do enjoy is I love audiobooks. That has been my big
Mm,
thing. And like I mentioned, I go to church weekly and that's my support system. So, kind of just being involved in the church, whether it's in Mississippi or in Florida, those
right.
are sort of the 2 things that really kind of I do on the side most of the time. I work full time. We have 2 of our 4 kids, most of the time. So it's just juggling and taking the kids to sports and to, their classes and schooling and all the different things. And then again, on the off time, I'm making a 10.5 hour drive every other week to go to
Mhm.
Mississippi. So then by the time I get to Mississippi, I'm completely exhausted and wiped out and I want to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I got you. And that's a lot of like, growing up, I think every kid goes through the same thing. Like, when we grow up and our parents or adults around us tell us that, enjoy life while you were young, and we
Yeah.
always blow it off like, I don't want to hear that. And they try to
Mhm.
teach us life lessons that we don't want to listen to. But when we get older, we find ourselves trying to teach that and mold or instill the same thoughts into our kids. It's the weirdest thing,
Yeah.
man. It's like there isn't a lot of time in a day, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people say they wish they had more time in a day, but I like to tell people like, for what? Because we're creatures of habit, right? So like the same thing we're doing now, if we have more time in the day, we'll still do that. So if we run out of
Yeah.
stuff, like if we run out of time, it's because we're not managing our time properly. So if you give
Mhm.
us more time, guess what? We're just going to do the same thing. It's just to an
Yeah.
extended period, right? Like say if we watch a movie, instead of watching one movie, we might watch 2 movies because we
Mhm.
got more time. Um, so
Yeah.
it's a repeated cycle, and then we're still gonna find ourselves in the same spot if we don't know how to manage our time. We don't know clock management. We go,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how much time we got. So it comes down to self and just knowing what you want to
Yeah.
do. And life once you get older, life is no longer about fun and games. It's not about. It's not even about happiness. And
I know. I feel like
We
half the
get
time
too
it's just
consumed.
get from point one to point two and
Yeah,
how we get there, you know, all the details around it and the planning of it. And then you get there, like family vacations, you know, a friend of mine told me, she was like, just keep low expectations, you know, years ago when I had kids. And I
yeah,
was like, no way. Like, we've planned, we've prepped, we've done all these things. And then, of course, the children were miserable. It was raining. We were on the beach, you know,
yeah.
whatever it was. And I just remember being like, all right, good to know. Low expectations from here on out for every trip because you can do all the planning you want and it doesn't matter. So,
No, I know. Yeah, like I said,
mhm,
especially with people with kids, like
yeah,
you plan and you. So for me and my
gosh.
family, we always add an additional time. Like if we're
Hmm.
going somewhere, and then on the way back,
Oh, yeah.
an additional hour. And we still don't have the time, or we still don't do what
Uh,
we plan. Like last week, I took the kids to, or two of the kids to, like a wrestling event.
mhm,
Thought they was gonna be super excited, and they got there.
mm.
My one kid, he was all over the place, like he got ADHD, and the other one he looked so miserable, right? But when we home, these are the things they talk about. Can we do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
You know, and then here it
Yeah.
is tomorrow. We about to take another 6 hour drive just to go to a wrestling event that we're gonna be there all day.
Wow.
It's like from 5:30 to midnight, and then we gotta take that 6 hour drive home. So we do these things as parents to try to keep our
Yeah.
kids happy. And I'm hoping that tomorrow is different than last week.
I'm
I
sure it
am
will
hoping.
because now they know what to expect, you know? So now they know, like, we've had this conversation with our kids too. Like, they'll be like, well, we don't want to go on the plane. We don't want to go on the drive. And I'm like, okay, but when we get there, here's all the things that we're doing, you know? And they're like,
Hmm.
well, I don't know. And then you get there and they're like, this was the best trip ever, you know? And it's like, see,
Right,
just
right.
listen to me next time. It's not that hard.
Or this one before you leave, we always as parents, right? If anybody get out to use the bathroom, do it now.
Oh my God.
I'm like,
That
wait, are
is,
you sure? Yes. Get in the car. 15 minutes later, I gotta use
I
the
gotta
bathroom.
pee.
Can you hold it? No. Oh my god! Now you gotta take a detour. Because I don't
Hmm.
know if y'all got parkways, but we got parkways. And now you jump on the
Hmm.
parkway, it's adding another 20 minutes to your drive. It's like it's insane.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as parents, we love our kids.
I will say, two of the kids, so we have 2 boys and 2 girls. So the boys, we do the drive often to and from Florida to Mississippi, and
Right.
we started off very much that way of, you know, having to go to the bathroom 20 minutes in, and then they chug all their water and another 40 minutes go by and they gotta go again. I'm like, "This has turned from a 10-hour trip to a 12-hour trip, and I'm over it."
Hmm.
And now these kids are champs. We joke as a little family and we'll be like, all right, kids, it's time to dehydrate yourself. Like, don't drink anything because
Right.
we gotta go. And so now we make one stop. I mean, we'll stop if we need to, but these kids have gotten it down to where we can make one pit stop in the middle, fill up with gas, get our food, go to the bathroom, and then we're home, you know? So I'm like,
Right.
man, I've like really trained these children now.
Got you. So let me ask you this: do you believe in redemption and second chances?
Oh, of course. If not, where would I be as a human? I
Right.
am
Right.
by far not perfect at all. So I have to believe that there's something out there that's giving me better chances and, you know, second chances and redemption. Otherwise, I'm screwed, you know, like there's no hope.
Now I'm glad you said that because when I asked that question because just the other day I heard a group of people. Nobody I knew. I just sometimes you hear something, sometimes you linger around just to be a little nosy.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
heard people. I heard people was talking about how I don't do second chances, and I just thought that was insane. So I said let me add that to the podcast for today because I'm pretty sure that they had downfalls in their life
Yeah.
or they needed help. So I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure somebody helps you out. So when I hear certain things like that, it's mind boggling. I'm like, what do you mean you don't
Yeah.
believe in? And then so it was a group of women, and the one woman was saying how she cut this guy off because he was talking about a redemption story, and she was like, once you become an adult, you should have your act together. You should know what you want in life. You shouldn't be preaching about
No.
redemption. And I was like, oh man, I was like,
Mm-mm.
those women must have been going through something traumatic in their life,
Yeah.
right? And that's the first thing I thought about. And I
Yeah.
was I was itching to go over there and just ask questions, but I know that's a dangerous
Yeah.
situation. They
Well,
don't
I
know
mean,
me. They
think
probably
of,
would have cursed me out. So
yeah, well,
go
and
ahead.
think of kids, you know, like maybe it's somebody who didn't have kids, right? But as a parent, we got to give these little suckers lots of chances to listen, to do what we're telling it. Like, you know, can you imagine as a parent just being like one and done? Like, you didn't listen, now you don't get dinner because you didn't come the first time I called you. Like,
Right.
but to me, like, that's a second chance for a child, and there's, again, so many things, like, I could mess up at work and what my boss is gonna immediately fire me be
Mm,
and not give me the second chance, to fix
right.
whatever it is that I made, so I just feel like on a regular basis, we are given so many second chances, so who am I to deny somebody else a second chance, to prove
Absolutely.
whatever it was. So, yeah,
Right.
I
Now,
full-heartedly believe it.
going back to the religious piece for a second,
Yeah.
since you said you are religious,
Mhm.
what has Christianity done for you in your life?
Oh, I did a whole podcast on this. We I My husband and I attribute the success of our long distance marriage because, again, we've been doing it for 3 years, and
Mm.
we thought we had 2 more to go. It looks like it might be 2 to 4 more years to
Oh,
go.
ooh,
Um but the only thing that's gotten us through is Jesus. Like, learning how to communicate, learning how to have patience, that has been a huge aspect of our lives. We've done couples books that are biblically based, and so for us to be able to read this separately and to have, like, a virtual date night to go over these questions and to, and not all of them are like, "Let's read a Bible verse," it's just more of like, "Hey, this is how, proper communication is, to be patient, to be kind, to be loving," and
right,
so then we can take those because honestly, it's just staples in everybody's life. Like, everybody could use a little bit more kindness, a little bit more love, a little bit more patience, whether you're Christian or not. And so
right,
for us, it's just sort of what has been the glue that held us all together and has really grown our family. And even now, like, for Father's Day, the boys and I were at the store and we walked in and there was a shirt, and I think on the front it just said like good news, but the back was like all biblically based. It was like how Jesus has risen from the dead and how he did all these miracles. And it was like all of these like little snippets, like a comic book. And the oldest son goes, "Oh, that is a Sean shirt if I've ever seen one," which is my husband's name. And
okay,
so for me as a parent, I'm like, that's really cool that my child associates their stepdad with Jesus, so like we are clearly showing as best as we can because again, we're not perfect and I need those second chances all the time because I yell at my kids or I get frustrated with my husband, like
Uh,
whatever it
yeah,
is. So yeah, so honestly, like that question, I could have a whole entire podcast just on that question of how it's integrated into our life on a daily basis and on a regular basis.
right, right, okay. So all right, so tell me about a time where you were going through a dark time and you made it out on the other side.
Well, when my mom passed away. So my mom and I, she was probably like, the cliche, my mom was my best friend. But being a single parent, I intentionally like moved right down the street from my parents because I had
Right,
2 kids on my own and I needed support. And so my mom really became my backbone. And, she went into the hospital on a Wednesday and passed away the following Tuesday, and
mm,
she was the healthiest person I knew. She went to the gym 5 days a week. She, on top of that, would walk every night with my now stepmom, and, she ate healthy. She did all the, right things to be a healthy person, and then she just, I mean, less than a week later, she was gone. And so that for me was, I mean, devastating doesn't even cover it. Like that
right,
can't even describe the loss and the shock. So it's not only just the grief of it, but it's the shock of losing my parent at 28, 29 years old, however old I was. Um, and not only that, but my mom, like she picked my kids up from school. She was the one that I would call on my way home from work every day to like debrief my day. And now I didn't have that person. And, he was my boyfriend at the time, but my now husband, he was really helpful and like really stepped up and was there for me. But it took a long time for me to be okay. And I mean, and I say to be okay, I still have days like where I got this really cool speaking opportunity. Last month, I think I was notified for our foundation, and I was so excited and then immediately burst into tears. And my husband was like, "What is going on? Like, what is happening?"
right,
And I was like, "This is a moment that I wish I could call my mom." And she passed away in 2019, so it's been years and it's still those thoughts of I wish I could just call her. So through that journey of learning how to navigate a world without a parent, I'm still on it. It's still hard, but for me, what helps me is she always loved cardinals. So for me, every time I see a cardinal sitting outside my front office window, I'm like, "Hey, mom," she's there checking in on me. Or, my kids still talk about her a ton. And so we keep her very much alive and we honor her on her birthday and Mother's Day. And, the day that she passed, we do something intentional. But for me, it was having the support around me, like people don't know what to do when there's grief involved, but even just sitting there with your loved ones in
Right.
silence can almost be more powerful than filling the space with words. Um, so yeah, so I mean, it took a while, and again, there's days. I mean, I'm sure there'll always be days, but I feel a lot stronger because I had that support and I had that comfort and people to turn to and to just be like, this sucks, like
Right.
this is the worst.
Right. And that's what we was talking about before. Like, that having that support system is very important.
Hmm.
Just and you said sometimes just that presence, right? Sometimes it's
Hmm.
all about just showing up. It's not about words. It's just showing up and just being there. That means a
Yeah.
lot. Because if we could visually see people around us, that takes us that does more for us than just hearing the words. Because
Mm.
oftentimes we, no matter what the situation is, what the hardship is, we tend to use the same words for what I'm saying, and
Mhm.
and the same
Yeah.
words don't fit with every story. But it's like you
Yeah.
said, sometimes people don't know how to deal with grief or don't know how to respond to grief, and we want to be there for them, but just can't formulate the words. So sometimes just being there, allowing that person to
Yeah.
see your presence, takes us a long way.
Well, and I
um
think too, like, it's hard as somebody who is grieving to reach out when I'm having a moment. My best
right.
friend jokes and she's like, "Oh my God, I collect your mental breakdowns like Pokemon cards because they're so rare." Like she's like, this never happens because I'm not gonna call her when I'm crying, but I every
Right.
once in a while I have because it's just been like I need somebody.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so I think even that too, like people on the other side, we don't wanna reach out. We don't wanna feel like a burden. We don't wanna feel like we're troubling you or, "Hey, maybe we've called you 4 or 5 times already to cry about my dead mom, and you're sick of hearing about it, and I don't wanna bring your mood down." So
Right.
then I'm gonna do it by myself in peace and then tell you about it later. Whereas if you just sit with me, you don't have to say anything, I don't have to say anything, and I know that you're there to just, be there with me in that space, let me have my moment, and we can move on. Like, we don't have to talk about it, but it's
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because it lets me know that I'm not alone. Right. And I said it because I use that line with people all the time. People's like, if you're going through something, why you don't call me? You got my number. Why you don't text me?
Oh,
And I'm like,
mm-mm.
well, I said, it's because I didn't talk to you about this like 3 times this week already.
Mhm.
I don't want to bore you with the same old story, or I don't want to burden you with my problems, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, listen, if you're gonna call me your friend, allow me to be that. And it's never gonna be a burden, it's never gonna be a problem.
Mhm.
And and I try to explain to them, listen, I got family members I tell this to. That's easier said than done, I feel like it
Yeah.
secretly, some people they be like, "Oh my god, not again," but they may
Mhm.
not tell you, but like you could pick it up on their energy, right? Their body posture, or they might roll their eyes or something like
Yeah.
that. So I like to read the room, so I see that, and I'm like, yeah, now I'm gonna switch gears, change the subject, and that's why I don't do it. And like you said, you rarely call or reach out when you're crying or something, but you have your moments where you do, and I'm the same way. And a lot of people say, listen, if you need that person, call. If you need me, call.
Mm.
And it's something I don't do. It's something I
Yeah.
can't say I'm gonna work on, but I feel like I'm right in this sense. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I don't want to burden people with my burdens all the time.
Mhm.
Like beat them over
Yeah.
the head with it. So I
Well,
keep a lot of stuff to get
yeah, and I don't wanna bring the mood down. Like, I don't know what you're
right.
doing. You can have the best day ever, and I call you being like, "My mom died," and they're like, "Oh,
Right, right.
great. Here she goes again," and they're like, "Oh, well, there goes my fun day of relaxing or, being with family or whatever." And so to me, I'm like, "I don't know what you're doing. I'll text you
Mm.
later about it just so that you're aware when I'm in a weird mood." I'll tell my husband that all the time, and he's like, "Just call me." And I'm like, "No. No, thank you."
Yeah, and it's crazy. So, and you feel like that even with your husband, right? And I like I said, I can relate. And then,
Mhm.
when you was talking about your mom, and you may not ever get over it. I don't think we ever do get over things like that. I think we push it aside, but it's always going to be something that's going to trigger that moment or that thought, and it's always going to live within us. And it's okay. It's part of human nature. You know,
So
you know.
I
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't
No,
mean to
no,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off. I heard this really cool thing and I love telling everyone about it. So, my therapist, I was in therapy for many, many years, divorce, dead parent, remarriage, blended family, all the things. You kind of need the therapy. And so, my therapist at the time, she goes, your grief will never change size. So, she drew a
Mm,
picture and she was like, here's a circle, right? And she was like, inside the circle, is another circle and it's a little bit smaller. And say that this is like your grief, right? And this is
right.
your life. And right now, the grief is over consuming your life. It is overtaking everything. You can't function because you're in the raw space of it. She's like, but eventually your life grows and grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but your grief never changes. Your grief never gets smaller. Your grief never goes away, but you learn how to navigate life around it and your life grows around it. And so
Mhm.
I love that image to be like, it's okay that sometimes it still sucks because it's still the same size. It's still the same raw grief, but I've just learned how to, like you said, kind of push it aside, but it didn't mean that it went away. And so, like, for
Right.
me, when I'm in those moments, I'm like, okay, this is where my grief has become, my life has shrunk back down and the grief is overtaking, and that's okay because eventually we'll get back to where my life is bigger than the grief. And so
Right.
I love that for me. I love like imagery and stuff, to be able to
Right.
see it. So,
I got you.
yeah.
Yeah. See, so mental health is extremely important, but like I was saying earlier, it's
Hmm.
something that a lot of us take for granted, right? I feel
Hmm.
like I just feel like there's a lack of love in the world, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's hard for some of us to get that redemption story,
Hmm.
right? Because that lack of love. And it's funny I mentioned that because I am currently writing my own little autobiography. I've been saying
Oh,
for years
yeah.
I'm gonna do it, but now I just finally start putting pen to pad.
Fair
Appreciate
enough.
you. Now in doing so, you know what it does is it brings me back to the past, right? So I
Hmm.
come face to face with my childhood traumas,
Oh, yeah.
and my main reason for wanting to write this book was to understand my thought process, why I think the way I
Mhm.
think, why certain things make me tick the way they make me tick, why I function the way I function, why I feel the way I feel. And so writing this takes me back to those times. And what I've come to realize is I've felt a lack of love and attention and validation in my
Mhm.
life. And that's where a lot of my issues have come from. Because, growing up, I had a lot of behavior issues. I used to fight all the time and I was just very
Mhm.
disruptive in school and things like that. So in writing this, no matter where I've been in my life, you could take any piece of my life and you dissect it. That's what you come down to. When you break it down,
Mhm.
you come to the conclusion that I was missing that love and that affection, that attention. I was in a broken home, and even though I didn't want my father and my mom in a relationship together because they're
Yeah.
two different people and it wouldn't have worked out anyways. In writing this, I realized that like I never wanted my mom to be with another man.
Mm.
Right? I, Growing up, I always felt like I'm the only
Yeah.
male, or me and my brother's the only men that she needed in her life. I, you know, Yeah, because no matter what relationship she was in, as I'm writing this, I'm like, I keep coming to the same thing. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's how I really felt. I always said that, when I get older, I'm gonna give her that life that no other man has given her.
Mhm.
So so it puts a smile on my face as I write these pages, and because I'm like, wow, okay, I'm starting to learn a lot more about myself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I've done the whole therapy thing, and the crazy thing is, some of this stuff a therapist already divulged with me. They was like, no, I don't know much about you, but this is what I think, right? And
Mhm.
they're good at their job. When you have the right therapist, they're good at what they
Oh
do.
my gosh, yeah.
Um, but writing this book is bringing a lot more out of me, and I'm learning myself a little bit more. So that's
Yeah.
good. You was about to say something before?
No, it's just I love that you're doing this for yourself. Like, I feel like that's so healing for your inner child, and just to be able to look back in a healthier space right now, like maybe not fully healthy, but a healthier space to look
Right,
back and go, wow, these are the areas that I was lacking. And then to be able to apply it of like, you know, this hopefully will help somebody else in this situation. Like, what better what better role do we have in life than to take
right,
what we've learned and to try to help others, to
right,
improve their lives because we've done it, right? Like I've lost a mom. My best friend just lost her dad, and she was like, "What do I do?" And I was like, "Girl, let's walk through what you're about to go through." So like,
right,
but that's only because I've I've been able to heal from that. So for you to be able to be like, I've looked at my past and my childhood, like that is incredible. Cause I also feel like not many people want to do that. You know, they're kind of like, well, it's buried, it's in the past, we don't need to go there. But your past has so much to do with your present and
Right.
you need to unpack it.
Right. And that's what I was about to say. Like, I often tell people don't shy away or don't run from your past, embrace it, right?
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't
Hmm.
for your past, you wouldn't be the person you are now, right? Like
Exactly.
let's say you're a person that had that redemption story. Well, you wouldn't be able to redeem yourself if it wasn't for the past. So embrace that
Hmm.
past, right?
Yeah.
Just like a lot of people talk about mistakes and stuff. Mistakes are just life's lessons. That's all it is, for
Hmm.
me, anyways. Because anything we go through in life, it's going to teach us something,
Yeah.
right? And if you feel like things you haven't learned things, that's because you're not you don't know who yourself. You got to get in touch
Hmm.
with your inner self, because everything in life is a life lesson,
Oh yeah.
right? So that's that. And like I said, I am learning a lot more about myself, and it's a good thing, because I do want to give back. At an early age, I always say I want to be in a space when I get older to be able to give back,
Hmm.
because that happens. I think when we all face traumas and we go through pain, we know what that pain feel like, and we don't want to see
Yeah.
other people endure that same hardship and that same pain. So I think for me, at an early age, I kept saying I want to give back. I wanted to help other people live a better life, or prosper, so they won't have to go through the things I had to deal with, right? And that brings
Yeah.
joy to my face. I mean, that brings joy to me.
Hmm.
I actually love just thinking about it. Like, what I'm saying, it does something for me. It energizes
Yeah.
me, because I want to see people happy. I want to see the world in a better place.
Yeah.
And you mentioned love before. That's what we all need, the love, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's a big disconnect in relationships, households, with love, right? Once we start embracing love and start doing it a little bit more, we'd be in a better place.
Oh yeah.
What you about to say?
My husband actually was just reading a book, and I honestly can't even remember the title or who, like, I don't know anything about it because I didn't read it. But he, every day, we would talk on our like nightly FaceTimes. And every time he would talk about this book, it always came back to love and how important it is within
Right.
our society, within our families, within our faith, within whatever spiritual guidance you lean towards. Every religion goes back to love to some
Mhm.
capacity. You know, you don't have to be a Christian to know how important love is. And
Right.
so, it's been interesting that he's been like implementing sort of like these, just trying to be like extra loving and showing the kids extra love and, all of these different things. And so now the kids are, they're working on it because they're all between 8 and 11. But they're trying because they see us trying, and I think that if they can then take that out to their school and try to, help somebody who fell down the stair or whatever, and so now we started from that, what's one kind thing you did today for somebody else? So I
Hmm.
pick them up from school and what's one kind thing that you did for somebody else? Just one. We don't need a whole slew of things. You don't have to be perfect at it. And in the beginning it was like, well, I don't know, and then by the end it was like, mom, I know what I did today. And then it was very
Right.
intentional, and I'm like, and you're passing kindness to another person. And then that intentionally, or, that in turn makes them want to be kind and so on and so forth. And that's because you're learning to love humans where they're at. And so love is
Right.
just so the baseline for everything in our family, at least.
Right. And I love that about you. And I'm gonna have to steal that. I'm every day I'm gonna ask my kids, like, what's one kind thing
Hmm.
that you did? I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to steal that from you, because I love that.
Yeah. Go for
Because
it.
as you was telling me that story, it brought me back to a time last year, because my oldest son do tackle football, and I don't remember if it was the end of the season or after the end of a game. One of his teammates came to me, and he gave me a hug or something, and he was like, and he cried, and he says, "You're a great dad." I was like, Okay. It was so awkward for me. I'm like, why do you say that? He said, because you raised. Listen, he said you raised a beautiful son, and he's
Mm.
he's 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 great to be around. And when you about to cry, you feel it here. And
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I can't cry in front of no little kid. So I'm sitting here trying to turn my head, and I'm blocking it from coming down. For me, it touched me, because at that age, it's like,
Mhm.
wow, what are their
Yeah.
parents doing right? That's what I thought. What are
Hmm.
their parents doing right? That a kid at that age comes to an adult and say that about their kid. And
Oh
it,
yeah.
it was it was impactful for me, and I just couldn't
Mhm.
believe it. So when you
What a
when you was telling me that,
spirit
that's the first
moment.
thing I thought was the kindness. Teach your kids kindness, man. And
Mhm.
it's something I gotta do a lot more of because I teach my kids things, but sometimes they go in one ear out the other, and oftentimes
Yeah.
I'll sit there and say, whatever, we'll talk later. But
Yeah.
instead, I should keep at it and be like, listen, you want to be treated like this, so treat others people's like the same way.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
it's that
that's
golden
that's good.
rule.
Right. Now we was talking about mental health before, right? Like sometimes it start with the small thoughts, right, that affect us, right? Like it might start with I'm lonely, right? And then lonely
Mhm.
turns into worthless, and then worthless turn into why am I even here, right? And it
Yeah.
takes us to this depressive state where it's like, you know, like I don't have a sense of purpose,
Mhm.
right? So when we talk about mental health and we talk about therapy, it's important. And
Mhm.
you said you did therapy, I did therapy. I think we all can benefit from therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this: how do you drown out all the noise? How you drown out all the like the negative thoughts? Um, and then what will be your advice to the current person that's feeling the lack of love or feeling like they're just not happy in life?
So for me, I think my answer is going to be a little bit different than a lot of other people because I am a Christian. And so for me, it's taking that time to take a step back and take a deep breath. My
Right.
therapist taught me to go into a quiet space. If I'm getting overwhelmed or if I'm getting really anxious, because those are two things that I deal with very frequently, which then turns into spiraling. And so
Right.
um, she told me that you have to sit straight up in a chair or like on the bed, but your feet need to be touching the ground at a 90-degree angle with your legs, and then you take your hands and you put your hands on your thighs. It has to be skin to skin. It can't be like there can't be pants or shorts in the way. And you close your
Mm.
eyes and you take a deep breath in for 7 seconds. And then then you let it out for 7 seconds. I don't know what magic that does, but oh my gosh, that stuff, it works wild. So for me, that's one of the first things that I do is I go find a quiet space and I do that. I sit there and I take my few deep breaths. Um, and then, I take a moment to pray and I'm like, okay, clearly I am not in control. I cannot handle my own thoughts right now. Like, you got to step in. And I pray. I
Mm.
don't know if it's normal, but I pray like I'm talking to a friend. So it's like, hey, dude, you got to fix this. You got to help me out. I can't do this on my own. It's like very conversational. I'm not the reverent where I'm like, dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today. Like that's not my vibe. And I feel like
Right.
Jesus loves me as I am, right? So like he knows. He probably looks down whenever I did do that beforehand and be like, that's not you. Like you don't talk like that to anybody. Like he's probably like,
Right.
just
Right.
be
Right.
real. So for me it's just kind of being like, holy crap, I'm really struggling today. And with my husband far apart, like it has been more frequent with these prayers and these thoughts because it's been really hard. We've had our moments of like, this is miserable. Like, why did I even get into this? Like, love him, love our kids, love our family. But like this situation we knew about from day one, and we both
Right.
actively chose to continue on. And so, I think for those out there, Christian or not, like take that time away from whatever it is. So if you're sitting at your desk working, take 5 minutes to go to a quiet space away from your desk, remove yourself from the environment. That's going to be the most important thing, is that taking yourself out is if you can, right? Like not everybody can. And if you can't find that quiet little corner to just take some deep breaths. Those deep breaths are game changer. And then I also just read how I love like the science behind things. And so I read how water can reset you. So
Mm.
they were saying like how when you have an infant and they're really fussy and they're miserable and they're teething and you just can't, nobody's happy, stick them in a bath. What happens? They love it. They have the best time ever. You don't have to dunk them under water, but they can sit, they can splash around, they're having fun because it resets them. As an adult, what do we do when we're overwhelmed or when we're stressed or when we've had a long day? We shower and we sit there. That's why there's so many, memes and jokes about shower thoughts and best ideas come in the shower because we're able to reset.
Mm.
Grumpy kids, throw them in a pool, go do a bubble bath, do something. So water reset. So if you can take a moment, go wash your hands. They were even saying, like, if you can't take a full shower, just wash your hands. And the movement and the water of doing that does something. I
Yeah.
can't remember all the chemical stuff because that's not, my forte, but very interesting. And I was thinking back as a parent, I did that with my kids all the time, threw them in baths. I love showers when I'm overwhelmed, so I'm like, this checks out to me. And so for me, those are things that help and that I would recommend. They're small things. You can take a 2-minute shower. It's not going to kill you. Your boss isn't going to miss you for 5 minutes. It's going to be okay. Like, just
Right.
take a step back.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
I think, just being able to ground yourself in something, whether it's Christianity, whether it's a different religion, whether it's listening to your favorite podcast for 2 minutes, just removing yourself from the situation is step one. And from there, everything else will slowly start falling into place from what I've learned.
All right. I love that. I love that. Now, if I was to give it like a bit of advice, I like to tell people to have a vision board for it's because a vision
Mhm,
board it serves multiple purposes. So like for me, like one thing a vision board would do for you would be like if you in those dark times where you feel worthless or unloved or whatever the case may be, just know where you want to be, and that's where the vision board comes
mhm,
into place. You have a vision, and you go through these times and you just say, I know where I want to be, right?
mhm.
Because I know it helped me. Like it you know where I'm at right now, it's like a whole 360 of where I used to be. Like all that
Yeah.
anger and all that disruption. That's not me anymore. I'm all about positivity now. And it took me a long time to get to where I'm at now. So I always commend myself, and I don't look for validation
Yeah.
with nobody because I validate myself enough.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm feeling down, I always think about the vision board. I think of where I want to be,
Mhm,
and I'm a competitor and I'm a fighter. I don't give up. I keep pushing. I keep thriving. So I
mhm.
think about what's on the top of my vision board, and I was like, if I don't believe, I'll never achieve that,
Yeah.
right? And I know I do believe in myself. So when I'm feeling low, I think about where I want to be, right? And,
Yeah.
and and that motivates me. And just knowing myself also helps. I know myself, and I know nobody's going to care for me like I care for myself.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to love me the way I love myself. So at the end of the day, when I'm feeling down, I look to myself and to bring myself out of that.
Well,
It took a lot of work. It's just love it. Like we go back to that word love.
mhm.
I sit there sometimes just looking in the mirror. Like I've cried in the mirror. Nobody knew about this.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when I sit there and say I'm not going to break, I look in the mirror and then I let the tears fall. And I
Yeah.
look at myself, I look at the reflection, I'm like, you know what? I love you. Right.
Well, and you say like to look to the future and all of that. I only kept thinking of like, if you're not proud of you, who else is going to be proud of you? So like
Right.
it starts within, and then other people will catch on. But they also, have you heard the whole Mel Robbins high five habit?
I have not.
Okay,
Well, you
great
said
book.
Mel Robbins or
Oh yeah, great book. Highly recommend. Shout out to Mel Robbins. I love her. But she talked about the high five habit of waking up every morning, and it feels really weird at first, but you go to the mirror and you give yourself a high five. And it's
right.
like this whole, and I don't do it anymore. I did it for many years, but like you just wake up and you're like, all right, this is weird, but we're going to do it. And it becomes normal and natural. And it does something to your brain chemically. She explains it all in her book, but it does something to your brain chemically where it's like the confidence boost and it sets your day off in the correct like way because high fives do it like resets your brain somehow or something. And I'm doing a terrible job like explaining this, but it like starts your day off with a high five, which always makes you smile, is what she says. Like, when have you ever done a high five and you're not smiling? Like
Right.
you always smile at a high five. And so you start your day with a smile and then the chemicals in your brain, and then it just kind of like helps you from there too. So everybody should go read that book. It's phenomenal.
So it's by Mel Robbins. What's the name of the book?
High five habit or high five theory. No,
Okay.
it's let them theory and then high five habit. It's so good. And it's a really tiny book too. Like I think if you listen to
Okay.
it, it was, like, maybe 4 hours or 5 hours or
Uh,
something, like, it was very quick.
now, I think I know and understand where you was getting at with that. Like I said, when I look at myself in the mirror and
Mhm.
I say I love you,
Yeah.
I think it's like like one and the same in a sense. Because
Mhm.
remember earlier I said what I learned about myself writing this book was I lack that love and attention, that validation, right? Well, I know
Mhm.
I'm never going to not love myself. So when I look in
Yeah.
the mirror and I say I love you, it does put a smile on my face because it's like
Mhm.
I, I'm giving myself the love that I feel like I always needed or that I lack.
You should
So
add the high five in and be like, "I love you. You're great. High five."
I got you. I got you. I'm gonna try it. See, and you know, and you said it helps you with your day, like it put a smile on your face. Because I think because it's the mind works in mysterious ways. I think it's because it's like a silly thing, and you
Mhm.
watching yourself do something so
Yeah.
silly. I think that's what it is. Like
Yeah.
you make yourself laugh, you make yourself smile, and it's who
Mhm.
doesn't want to? It's almost like waking up on the right side of the bed. Like who doesn't want
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah, and
You make
even when
yourself
you
laugh
wake
in the
up
morning.
and you're yeah, and if even if you wake up and you're grumpy and you're miserable and you don't wanna do it and you go in and you start to high five yourself, you're gonna feel weird about it, it's gonna be funny, and it's gonna change your mood. Like,
Right.
it is what it is, you know? So I
Right.
love that. You
Yeah,
should pair that with your validation in the mirror.
I got you. Yeah, because like when we're broken, it's okay, right? It's okay for us
Oh, yeah.
to be broken. We just need to go out and find that mentor or that good ear, right? And you know,
Mhm.
and that's why I'm here. Like that's the reason why. Well, one of the reasons why I do my podcast. I'm trying to help other people. Sometimes people need that encouragement or that motivation, right?
Yeah.
And also I know that people lack that mentorship or that good ear or that listener in life. So this doing this podcast and doing some of the other things that I do, it's my way of paying it forward, right?
Mhm.
And that's why I wanted to talk about investing in others, right? Because that's what I try to do. Because I know we all need somebody to invest in us. So I
Mhm.
like to invest in other people. I like to, help other people grow, right? Mentally, physically, or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. Um, like I feel like people that have love need to pour love into others,
Mhm.
right? Because if you're hopeless and you feeling like you're at the bottom, right, you can't like get yourself out of it. Like it's hard for anybody to do every single thing on their own. We all need
Yeah.
that go-to. We need that person in our lives, right? So yeah, so it's I heard somebody say that what you say your heart will follow.
Mhm.
And then like faith is something we speak first, right? And then we say it, right? It's sort of like, you gotta like you believe it, right? Once you believe it, then you can see it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, it's like if you don't have a vision, or if you don't know where you want to be in life, how can you see the finish line? So it's
Yeah.
one of those things. So like I said, so I love that. That's why I wrote it down. Faith is something we speak first, and then we see it, right? So if you think about that and you break it down and you just think about life in every life situation,
Yeah.
that's how it is. You got to have a vision. You got to know where you want to be in order to get
Mhm.
there. So we
Well,
can't
and
talk about. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and it goes back to your vision board. You know, like you brought
Right.
that up, and it was made me remember like I need to do one. You know, I haven't done one in a few years, and like what a
Right.
great reminder, but also to be able to see that and to see that finish line and to be like, listen, you know, my husband and I who have a shared notes app, and we like have I got like little mini champagne bottles and we have like goals throughout the year. So if we hit the goal, then we pop the little champagne bottle together and like it is what it is. But it's not, I mean, yes, it's goals, but it's not like a vision board, you know, like it's just words on a
Right.
notes app in your phone. So I love that you brought that up a few times now of like the vision and the finish line and like being able to actually see it. Cause I'm sure that that also, you know, helps keep that focus rather than being like, "Oh, what was our goal? It's in the app, like, let me scroll through all my notes, you know, and go find it." Whereas, like, vision board, like, right there in your face.
You just said something that's very interesting. So wait a minute. Y'all have a shared goal, and once y'all reach that goal, y'all pop the champagne.
Mhm. Yeah.
Kudos to your parents or whoever instilled that in you because that's a great idea. That's something like I hear on like in a movie or see in a movie. Like I love that idea as well. I got to steal that too. You
Yeah,
pop the
it's been
champagne once you reach that
fun.
goal, even
Well,
if it's
and
for
it
myself.
yeah. Well, and that's where, like, some of the goals are joint goals, like
Right,
family goals or marriage goals or whatever, and then other ones are just individual goals, but you still get to share in that champagne with me because we did it together, we're still a team, and
I
so
love
but there
that.
was one point, I think it was in March, I wanna say it was maybe March, sometime in the spring, we had 3 of them back to back to back. And so it was like 3 weeks in a row, or like within like 3 weeks, we had 3 different champagne bottles. And so we were like, this is great. Like this is a really fun spring for us, you know, but like it's
Right.
such a cool like milestone. And it's like those little tiny ones, so it's not anything crazy, but it's still like such a fun symbolic thing to do together. So yeah, everyone should do it. I think it's great. Even just for yourself. Like you don't have to have a spouse to do it. Like go
Oh
buy
yeah.
champagne bottles and make a list and do it. Why not?
Right. And every milestone, every goal, just pop that champagne.
And we keep
I,
adding to it. So like we just keep getting more and more and more champagne bottles and more goals and all the fun things.
and that's good, you know. And as far as you guys are a couple, you guys are married, and that's great. And I often tell people that in order for a relationship or a marriage to thrive, you should make a spectacle of it. You should make it a game. You should challenge each other, right?
Hmm.
Like if you tell your husband, or if either you don't even got to verbalize it to him. If you have in your mind that I love my husband more than he loves me, and vice versa, now y'all making it a challenge within
Yeah.
yourselves. Now you're every day you're looking for new things to spice that relationship or
Hmm.
to show that person you love them. Now, if both of y'all doing the same thing, right? Y'all both of y'all on the same frequency,
Yeah.
life is grand, and couldn't nothing go wrong in life,
I
especially in
know.
your marriage.
I know.
So that's important, you know, and it's also important to, you know, be with the right person, right? You got to
Oh
be able to
yeah.
read the room and read the signs and just be with the right person. Because when you're with the right person, man, you know, you'll see God. Not to get religious, but you'll see God.
Hmm.
And I say that
Oh
because
yeah.
according to the Bible and religion and church, God is love.
Oh yeah.
All throughout the Bible teaches you to love yourself first, and to love your enemies and love everybody the same way you would love yourself. So
Hmm.
once we in a space in the world where we can do that, what can go wrong? Nothing.
Well, and it's fun you say that challenge because that book that we read, and like we, you know, we chat about it every week. One of the like challenges was, you know, I think it was like be as kind, like multiple acts of kindness a day or something like that, or out kind your partner, out love your partner, something like that. And it was really funny, you know, because we had to do it long distance, right? Like we couldn't do it in person. And so
Mm.
it was like little messages or little gifts or like something on the call later, you know, like whatever it was. But it was really funny just trying to do it. And it was such a fun challenge. And everybody, you know, has some competitive nature to them. So it's fun to be like, well, I did 12 and you only did 11, you know,
Yeah,
just kind of be like, I won.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Now it's challenging, and
Mhm,
sometimes you might necessarily not be in the mood, but just hearing that now you like it
mhm.
does something to your mind where you like what, and you might
Yeah.
not think about it right there, but an hour from there or the next morning you be like, no, I'm gonna get her back, or I'm gonna
Oh,
get him
yeah.
back. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Oh,
that's
yeah.
what keeps it fun, and especially for you guys, long distance, that is definitely key. That is definitely vital for
Mhm.
you guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because like the people around us will influence us, right? And a lot of people don't know that. Like, you know, that's why they say we creatures of habit. We attract like-minded people. So if you want positivity in your life, be positive.
Mhm.
And surround yourself with positivity because we are the company we keep, right?
Oh, yeah.
People have been saying that for years. So if you want positive influence in your life, those are the people you got to be around. But you have to preach it yourself. We can't expect something if we're not there ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
We can't want greatness if we're not great ourselves. So,
Mhm.
you know, because you know, in life it always has to be a head, right? Like somebody needs to lead the pack, right? We all need
Mhm.
that as human beings. And so, you know, like I said, when I talk about mentorship or somebody like a therapist or something like that,
Mhm.
that's the head in your life. Like that's that person. That's your go-to when things go astray. Like that's the person you go to make things better for you.
Yeah.
Like so, at the end of the day, we need to seek community, right? And I don't mean community
Mhm.
like go outside, like community as in like-minded people, right?
Mhm.
Um, so because one important thing I like to tell people is life is nothing but exchanges. Life is about exchanges.
Mhm.
If you think about it, our parents they give us life and then they teach us and give us the tools to succeed in life. It's an
Mhm.
exchange. And then we wind up having kids.
Do the
We
same.
exchange. We do the same thing at work. It's an exchange. We do the work for them, and in exchange they pay us,
Mhm.
right? In
Yeah.
exchange we provide food, shelter, for our kids and for ourselves, for our loved ones, and things of that nature. So life is all about exchanges. Because we can't do it alone. Now I don't know if you know this scripture. I wrote this down because I loved it. Like, I'm not religious, but it's times where I do like seek spirituality.
Okay.
Maybe I'm getting there slowly. I don't
Just
know. I got
dabbling.
both my older brother and my younger brother. They both give me scriptures from time to time. They both try to lead me to that water and hoping that I drink it. And I might get there. Who knows? It's just,
Yeah, never know.
I'm not. So the verse, or so in First Corinthians chapter 9 verse 22. Are you familiar with it?
Maybe.
Okay. So in that it says that we are all things to all men, so that we can save some of them. And I'm big on quotes, and not that that's a quote, but that
Yeah.
that resonated with me. That we are all things to all men, so we can save some of them. That's
Uh,
that's powerful when you
I
unpack
was
that.
gonna
So
say that's very powerful. Like
I wrote
that short little phrase.
a short little phrase, and like I said, and it resonated with me. Like, if you think about it, like I said, we all serve a purpose. So if we all
Mhm.
things that we want in life, like if we put out that energy, we're going to attract the energy, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
that's all it is. So yeah, I love that, and I made sure I wrote that down.
Yeah, I
Um,
like it.
so another thing I often tell people is this: when you watch the people in your circle, when you watch them rise, if you're not rising with them, you want them to fall. You get you get that?
Have you heard the crabs in a bucket?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's that whole theory, man. And that is wild to see as an adult. And for those that don't know, it's the whole crabs in a bucket, that if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, some of them will start climbing up, but then there's always the
Hmm.
one that doesn't want you to do it and it knocks the whole like crab tower down. And so my therapist used to tell me all the time, like, they're crabs in a bucket. Meaning they don't want you to succeed, or they don't want you to be good at what you're doing, or they don't want you to do this, and so they're crabs in
Right.
the bucket, and that has become a saying in our house: don't be a crab in a bucket.
Right. And like I said, that's powerful in itself, right? So like I said,
Yeah.
like, if and I ain't just talking about everybody in the world. I'm talking about if it's people you say that's in your circle, if they're elevating,
Yeah.
and if they're truly in your circle and you're not elevating with them, it's like, why are they in your circle?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That means, like, if you're not elevating with them secretly, subconsciously, you want them to fail,
Oh yeah.
right? Because we are all here for a purpose, and part of our purpose in life is to make the next person better.
Well, yeah, and I think it's too, like, so important how you said, like, just having the people around you and what energy you put out, you get back, right? But I've noticed, my husband started doing more of a deep dive into Christianity and the faith. And, we both grew up religious. But it wasn't until January where he really started. Well, I saw him growing, and I saw him, just in general, like, his work was going great, life was going great, all of these things. And I was like, wait a minute, I want that too. So then it
Hmm.
pushed me, and then it's pushed our friends around us, because we want that, and we see that for each other. But that can be taken to every aspect, right? You're either going to sit there and be like, I hope that you fail, or hey, let me join you, and how do I join you?
Well,
And it's
absolutely.
that, like, you get to make that choice on what you're going to think and where that mind shift change is going to go. And so if you want to choose the negativity, go for it, but maybe try to change that positive route, and just be like, hey, I'm going to join you. How can I do what you're doing? Can you be my mentor? Like you mentioned before, like, everybody needs a mentor. Can you teach me how you got to where you are, so that I can also
Absolutely.
be as cool as you are?
Absolutely. It's like different leagues, different brackets, right? Like,
Hmm.
do you how many millionaires that hang out with somebody that only makes $20,000 a year?
No. Mm-mm.
So it's different tax brackets. It's different. You're at two different points in your life, right? So that's what I mean. If you say somebody's in your circle and they're elevating and you're the only one not elevating, then
Hmm.
secretly you want them to fail. You want them to fall. You want to be
Yeah.
that person like, I knew you wasn't gonna be able to do it. I knew you wasn't
Yeah.
succeed. So if you're not going to elevate, leave that circle, right?
Hmm.
Control Alt Delete yourself out of there
Yeah.
and hang out with people that's going to be on a low frequency, right? Somebody that's going to be low function, because I don't know about you, but I like to be around people that's of high function, right? Because I look at
Yeah.
myself as a high functioning individual. So
Mhm.
I and because that's the way I look at myself, those are the people I need around me, right? If you're not high functioning, I'm not gonna devalue myself.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lower my standards just so I can stand in your company. I just can't do it. I don't do it. And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, you're rude or you're mean." I'm not mean. It's like I would lower my IQ to be with people that's not trying to like better themselves in life. Like, nah,
Yeah.
I have to be around people that's like minded.
I was gonna say,
Otherwise, what?
I'll be around those people to help mentor you, to get you up to my level.
Oh, right,
But you
and that's
gotta be serious about it. Like, I can't
you
there's too
you got
many
to run
moving
it.
parts and pieces in everybody's life. It's not just my chaotic life, it's everybody's chaotic life. And if we're gonna take the time to hang out, I want it to be we
Yeah,
gotta be there together, Yeah, I don't wanna have to feel like I'm exhausted afterwards?
got you. All right, so now I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier, right? I mentioned the family in flight earlier, right? Can you tell
Mhm.
me and the viewers about that and how you got started with that?
Oh boy. So this is my baby right now. Okay, so like I said, my husband and I, long distance, been doing it for 3 years now, come August. And well, no, sorry, March made it 3 years.
Okay,
And so for the last 3 years, I have either flown somewhere or driven somewhere every other week because every other week my kids are with their dad. And I know that I have a unique situation. So I didn't know that there were other people in my shoes, and I don't know why I didn't really think about it much. But it was last July or August. I was driving home and I was on the phone with one of my girlfriends, and I was just kind of like really venting about how mad I was about the
right.
situation. It was, I had done so many drives and flights had gotten so expensive. And so it was like, holy cow, I can't keep flying. But, driving just takes 10 hours of my day. And so she kind of was like prompting me with questions. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a nonprofit because there is no help out there. So when I got
Mm,
home, and I had done some research beforehand to try and find support, and there wasn't. There's organizations for families who have deployed loved ones. There's organizations for if you're doing a PCS, which is a move. There's organizations that help with all of these other things, but there is nothing for geobatching, which is what this situation is called, is when your military member is living bacheloring geographically on their own.
got
So
you.
I found out about this phrase, I think it was like 2 years in. I didn't even know that this was a thing, but apparently it's like a military coined phrase. So I started doing some deep dive and really found out that there was nothing. And that just really made me mad. I was like, why not? Like I cannot be the only one. And the more I dug on Facebook, the more I dug on the internet, I found that there were a lot of other people in my position and they were all frustrated and they were all struggling and there was no help. So I decided to create Family in Flight. So back in August, we officially filed for our LLC and applied for our nonprofit status. So we just got approved back in April, I think, for our 501(c)(3). So we're officially a nonprofit. And what we do is we provide support, whether
Right.
it's financial support or emotional support, because we offer monthly support groups for people to just jump on and chat and have a conversation, share ideas of, hey, this really worked for us, or, we have a trip coming up and we get to see our spouse, or, whatever it is, share the wins, share the losses, all in between. And then we have an application process to provide travel grants for families because like ourselves, like I work full time. My husband obviously is military, but we're supporting two homes, four kids. We have three dogs. So
Mm,
you're thinking about it, it's double of everything. It's double the groceries. It's double the electric, the water, the heating, the all everything is doubled. Plus, on top of that, you got to pay to travel if you want to see each other. And so, uh, I started it with, okay, I'm gonna provide travel grants. We'll do fundraising. We'll be able to pay for people's travel. And the more I talked to people, the more I realized people might need more emotional support than they do financial support at this time. So that's where support groups launched. And the goal with those support groups is we'll have financial counselors on there. How do you manage two households, and funds and all of that? We'll have, therapists jump on and give, practical tips of communication, or you're venting and you're frustrated and need to vent with your spouse, but how do you do it in a way that doesn't put them automatically on the defense? You're tired, you're exhausted. Many of us are solo parenting because a lot of why people stay behind is due to kids, whether it's a divorce situation, whether their kids are in high school and maybe they're really good at sports and they don't want to move them their junior year to start all over because they have a potential for a scholarship, or it's the spouse's job. There's so many different reasons why people choose to do this, but there was nothing out there. And so that's why we started this organization. And so, we kind of got all of our ducks in a row at the end of 24 and really hard launched it in January. We've done a virtual 5K back in the spring, which was really fun to, we did it so you could run together with your spouse, even if you weren't physically together. Virtual 5K, you could run at the same time, FaceTime, or call each other, whatever. So we did that. That was a great success. We had 9 different states or 7 different states participate. And then just kind of going from there, bringing awareness and letting people know we're here to help, whether it is the emotional side or the financial side. We have it covered all across the board. And again, this isn't a deployment. This isn't my spouse is deployed. There's a lot of other phenomenal groups that I will recommend for deployments, but that's not us. That's not my space. We've done our deployments. I've checked it off of our list. I don't want to do that deployment life again if we don't have to, but there's organizations out there that will help you through deployments. But we're here for those specifically geo-batching and living in separate locations from their spouse.
So again, that's tough. And I told you my younger brother, like that's a difficulty that he had. But so I have a question though. So your one residence is not funded by the military?
So we have base housing allowance. So I'm pretty sure every military member does. However, sure, it's based off the cost of living, but it doesn't cover the cost of living. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions is everyone's like, well, at least you have one house covered, and we don't. We don't live on base because, again, the qualifications, there's wait lists. So we wouldn't have had between the times that we got our orders to the time that we had to be there weren't going to be any houses available. We also have 3 dogs, one of them being 100 pounds. So although they're all doodle mixes and they wouldn't even hurt a fly, it's 100-pound dog. So there's restrictions for that. So we had to go purchase a house, or we rent a house, but we chose to purchase because, it was going to be a few years here, and we had hoped that he'd be able to finish out his military career here. And again, that doesn't look like it'll be the case, which is fine. It's, lots of prayer and thoughts have gone into this, and we'll see where we end up next. But so yes, technically it is part of his paycheck. We get that extra allowance, but it definitely doesn't even cover our mortgage. So it's not covering our electric, it's not covering our water, it's not covering the food, insurance. It doesn't cover hardly anything.
That's deep. So okay. Hearing that, right? It makes me think, because I know my brother was in the military. So one or two things happened here. Either he wasn't being 100% truthful with me, or times have changed. I'm not sure which one. But I know when he was in the military, not only was he getting paid, but for some reason his wife was getting paid. The military was paying his wife more than they was paying him. And I thought that was wild. And he told me that's what they do. The military do that for all wives. And the house they had, now, was it their ideal house? No, but they was like, fuck it. We have a second home. I know he told me the military had paid for it. That's why I asked you that question. And I remember sitting back saying, dang, you got it made. Because that's how I felt. Because he used to have a lot of nice things, and he had another home. You know what I'm saying? Actually, at the time, he had 3 homes, because he had one before he went to the military. She had her own, and then the military provided one. So technically had 3 homes. So what my brother was doing, he was renting out one of them. So it was crazy. And then I see all the nice things he had. him being in the military, I know he had the opportunity to travel the world. Like I remember at one
Mhm.
point he bought a house in Japan, and me and my mother and my family
Wow.
was like, "Are you crazy?" And he was like, "It's nice out there. It's beautiful."
Yeah.
And he always had these little ideas like, "Oh, if I do this, I want to invest. I'm gonna have
Mhm.
this property out here." And now I used to ask a bunch of questions because we watch these movies and stuff. We don't know no better. So I'm like,
Mhm.
"Doesn't it look like this?" He's like, "No." He told me Japan actually looks like New York City, but
That's what
cleaner.
I've heard. Yeah, I've heard the same. Now
So
we haven't been overseas. We've been, Florida and Mississippi, but we have a lot of. I have a friend who's over in Japan, and the pictures. I'm like, are we sure that you're in Japan? Because that's not what it looks like.
yeah, he's been. Oh my God, he's been to France, and like low key, I envied him. I was like, dang, my brother's the
Hmm.
luckiest guy in the world, and that's why part of me felt like it died. I was disappointed in him when he left the military because
Hmm.
to me, from the outside looking in, he had an extravagant lifestyle, and I was like, that's beautiful. You did this, you did that, you was getting paid, and you was set, but you got out. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, he went to France. My brother was able to go to Dubai. He been all over, and I used to sit back and like, dang, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So, what else can you tell us about life as a military spouse from your lens?
Oh man. Well, I was just talking to my mentor the other day, and we were talking about like, how do we share my story better, right? Like, how do we get it out there? And I was telling her some stories of like just being a spouse, and again, it's very different for me, like being in this geo batching spot. But
Right.
previously, we've done the deployments, and my husband was part of the deployment that was out in Afghanistan when they did that big pullout and they got
Mm,
everybody out, and he used to fly one of the very key planes, not the one that took everybody, but it was a key player in that whole process. And
right.
I remember this was our we didn't realize it, but it was our last deployment at the time, and he was supposed to come home sometime in August, and then everything happened, and it was the immediate stress and the immediate what's going to happen here, and then it was like, well, our replacement crew is out here, so we should be leaving on time. And he was walking to the barracks where it's like they go and they like swap. So the old guys come to the barracks over here and the new guys go take their rooms. And he was in those barracks and it's the night before you leave. And I got a call and he said, "We're extended." And I said, "You're bullshitting me. That is not true." And he said, "No, we are." And I said, "You've done this before as a joke. I don't believe you." And he was like, "Chelsea, I'm being 100% serious." And I remember just completely like crumpling in my room because
Right.
I was like, I cannot. And it was like, "How long are you extended? We don't know. When are you coming home?
Mm,
We don't know. Where are you going to be staying? Because these barracks have terrible Wi Fi. And now I'm not
yeah.
going to be able to call you, like, what is the plan here?" And I just remember being so defeated. And that was, when was that? 20, sometime in early 20s. But then, just seeing everything that went on recently with all of the Middle East, just my heart breaking for those military spouses who had my husband was located at that one of those bases that they had to emergency evacuate. So, being taken back to that is like just, your heart breaks for all of those spouses who do have deployed loved ones and who do have
Mm,
people who are over there and they don't have answers, and that's one of the biggest things as a military spouse. I'm a type A planner to a T, like my job is an event planner. I plan for events all year long. And then I married a military man and I have no plans. Like there is nothing that I can plan, nothing I can do, nothing I can set. I'm like, well, what's the timeline for our next move? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? He's like, well, I put in our list. And I'm like, will we get the list or will we get our preference? I don't know. I'm like, I
yeah.
am gonna cry. So military life as a spouse is just a wild ride, and you really have to learn to let things go, which has been a huge therapy and learning curve for me by far. Um, but it's also really rewarding. You talked about the community earlier, and I thought to myself, like, I'm really lucky. Like, I have a really good community. And I think, I've been very intentional about it. And that's
Right.
been the thing with geo batching is that so when you have a deployed spouse, the base that you're located at has a group of spouses that are the spouses of those deployed. And so you get together, you do lunches, you do dinners, you do events, you get your kids together, you do all of these things because your spouses are deployed. And so you're all in the same boat. So the
Right.
support there is awesome, right? Like, love that. When you're geobaching, you don't have that. You are not I am not part of the Tampa military base. My husband does not exist to them. Chelsea Thomas is just a random military dependent coming onto base. Like, there is no community for me at McDill. My community technically would be in Mississippi. However, I'm not here enough to have that community. So you have to be super intentional as a military spouse. And so I have built
Right.
my community, blood, sweat, and tears, and I have found my people. But it took 2 years for me to be like, okay, I guess I got to do this on my every other week up here or my once a month visits to be intentional with the friends up here. Otherwise, I'm going to be extremely lonely. I don't have the people down in Tampa. I don't have the military people up here. So, like, so as a military spouse, even when you do have the deployed, support, or they're called TDYs, and it's the short term, whatever. It's like, a month-long trip. They have
Right.
acronyms I can't keep up. You have the support for all of those situations. And so, just being intentional about it, regardless of where you are, is super important as a military spouse. But because of geobaching, I wanted to create that community that it didn't matter where you were, that you had the support behind you, and that you knew once a month at least that you could jump on a Zoom call and share your wins, share your losses, vent about how hard it is to parent solo, because that's exhausting sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like, even doing things around the house, like my husband, we made the deal when we decided this. I said, okay, that's fine, but 1 week of summer, you're gonna come down and you're gonna help me with house things, because like there's only so much I can do. And I remember our HOA was like, you need to blow off your roof, and he wasn't coming home anytime soon. So I was like, how hard can it be? I can do it. I put my little ladder, I got my like little leaf blower. I got up there, blow part of the leaf thing off. My battery died. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go back down the ladder and replace the battery with the other one that's charging. Well, my ladder was completely unstable and I couldn't get off my roof, and I
Hmm.
didn't have my cell phone. And so I was like, what do I do? Like, I'm home by myself in the middle of the
Right.
day on my roof. And I luckily had my watch, my Apple Watch. And I was like, dear Jesus, I hope this connects to the phone that's like somewhere in my house. So I called my neighbor who I knew worked from home, and I was like, can you come help me? And she was like, what is going on? And she's walking over, like cracking up. I'm like perched up on my roof. But like, it's things like that that like people don't even think about, like,
Right.
how am I supposed to blow my roof off when like I have nobody to hold the ladder for me to climb back down? My husband doesn't need anyone to hold the ladder, but I do. Like, clearly I can't do this on my own. But it's things like that where it's just like, man, military life sometimes, and I don't say this like to boost my ego or to say anything about me, but like, military spouses are a different breed at times. Like,
Right.
we always joke in the community, Murphy's Law will happen when your husband is gone. No
Right.
doubt about it. A pipe will break, house will fall apart, children will be the sickest they've ever been and in the hospital, and you're just like doing it alone. And like,
Right.
that's life
Right.
you
Yeah.
chose.
Yeah. I hear that, man. Like I said, I know to be a military spouse takes a lot of dedication and discipline. And the
Mhm.
word we keep circling back to is love, a lot of love.
Oh,
Because,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people might look at me crazy, but I'm just being honest. Just, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As far as being faithful to somebody in the military, I couldn't do it. I don't think so. I mean,
Well,
it's one of those things that you never know until you're in that position. But thinking about it, I don't think I could. Because
well,
it's
and
tough.
one of our board members, I remember I called him and I said, he's a good friend of mine. And I said, hey, do you want to join the board? This is my mission. This is my vision. This is what I want to do. He's ex-military, so he's very, well versed in military life. And he immediately goes, wow, I wish that this was around when I was active duty, because think of all of the marriages that could have possibly
Mhm.
been saved by being able to even do a visit once a month, or being able to have the support or the community. He goes, I can almost guarantee that half my guys would still be married if this was around. And to me,
Right.
being divorced, like, that's not a walk in the park either, like, especially
Right.
if you have kids and all that things. And I have stepdaughters, so like we're very well versed in that divorce life as well. And so even if this helps one person, because I think that for a lot of people that is a big in the face, opportunity, while your spouse is gone for a year or 6 months or whatever it is, and especially geobatching, like I'm lucky because my kids go to their dads every other week, but not everyone is in my position. Like one of the girls that I've been working with and talking to, she's full-time parent by herself,
Mm.
in North Carolina. And she is, that's it. And her husband is gone for the next 18 months basically. And
Yeah. It's tough.
and so, for her to go see her husband, it's okay, well, she's got to take the kids either to the in-laws in Tennessee so that she can
Hmm.
then drive over, or she's got to, bring the kid. Like, it's just so many different
Too
things. So
much.
for her,
Too
it's
much.
easier to stay home, and
Yeah.
it
And
is,
then
it
that's a
just,
problem in itself.
yeah. So, yeah,
So
so this really just did come out of a place of, finding an issue and how do we try to make it better for these people in
right.
this position. I can't change your position, can't change your geobatching, I can't change how far apart you guys are. I can't do any of
Right.
that. But what
Right.
I
Right.
can
Right.
do is maybe give you $300 off of a $700 plane ticket, and that 300 makes a huge difference. Or maybe I just pay for your gas if you're driving, or maybe it's that support group on Wednesday night where you can just be like, I'm annoyed today, and be like, same dude.
Uh-oh. 1 second. I just had the battery alert.
Oh,
Okay. It says I got about 15 minutes, so I'll wrap up soon. But what
yeah,
was I about to say? It's two things I wanted to say. Shoot. The one thing was, all right, so how many times were you married? That's the one question I
just
have for you.
once, one previous marriage. So this is
Oh,
my
so
second.
second. Okay, okay.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, I tell people all the time, I never been married. I've proposed to somebody, the same person twice. Just didn't happen. So if marriage comes, it comes. I'm not chasing it, man. But
Yeah.
oh, that's what I was going to say. I love what you're doing because earlier when I was saying how I always wanted to give back to the community and to the
Hmm.
world, to people, and how I pay things forward, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're paying it forward
Hmm.
by starting this foundation, and
Yeah.
and this support system for other people. Like that's you giving back, and I love that. I love that because like
Yeah.
if we all contribute to things like that, whether on a smaller level or a bigger scale, I mean, it's endless, man. Like we just gotta be there for each other, and that's it. So I
Yeah.
love people that's trying to better themselves and better other people's lives because you're not trying to better yourself. You know the position you was in, and now you
Mhm.
trying to help others. So I love that about you. That's good. That's a good quality to have, and your
Well, thank
husband's lucky to have a person like that.
you. I tell him that all the time.
I bet you do. But and also your kids. Like I know it resonates with your kids. You told me your
Mhm.
kids are kind. So it's
Yeah.
like they see mommy doing X, Y, Z, and then hopefully those are the characteristics that they'll keep with them as they get older. So I mean it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. And we, like I said, we talked about our kids often several times, and
Mhm.
they might drive us insane. We yell at them sometimes, but it's the moment we not with our kids that we feel lonely or feel out
Yeah.
of place. Because I know I do. Sometimes
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh my god, go to sleep, and I
Mhm.
kid you not. Like last night, like 5 minutes of all the kids asleep. I was sitting there like, oh, and I'm looking at my one. I was
Mhm.
like, I should wake him up.
Yeah.
But then I know
Mhm.
I won't get no sleep, and he will not stop. But
Yeah.
that's as a parent, that's what we go through. It's like you want to spend more time, but you want to spend time the way you want to spend time. But a
Mhm.
kid's a kid's version of quality time is being high off sugar and just bouncing all over the
Oh,
walls.
yeah.
And
I
they don't
know.
understand that our bones won't allow us to do those things
Oh my
anymore. Like
gosh.
go
Uh-uh.
outside. Oh, can you play with us? I'm like, what? I am not a kid.
Mm-mm.
Throw the
No,
ball a couple times. Like, oh, all right, I'm tired.
my knee might crack a few times if you make me play
Yeah,
games too
yeah,
long.
yeah. And then they're like, you're old, Dad. You're like,
Yeah.
dang, that's
Yeah.
terrible.
I am, and it's okay. You'll be here too one day.
So so I almost slipped up and said I envy. I don't envy, but it's like the people that had kids young.
Mhm.
I think they're younger, like mentally and stuff. So
Yeah.
they get a longer span
Hmm.
of time to do those things to the kids, as opposed to when you have kids late. Like people say, I had kids late. I mean, I don't. I mean, I guess in your 30s is considered late. I don't know,
Mm, I,
but it's different because my oldest son, he told me one day, he said, "Dang, Dad, when I'm 20, you're gonna be like 60." I said, "Ugh, never say those
uh,
words again."
no,
Never
you're
say,
banned
never.
from ever using that
Yes.
phrase.
Never use it. That's why on my birthday, I don't keep up with my birthdays no more. None
Mhm.
of that because, like, my last birthday, people was like, "Happy birthday!" I was like, "Wait, what? What's today?" They were, "You don't know when your birthday is?" I'm like, "Obviously, I do." I'm like, "I just don't. I don't give it no thought because at this stage of my life, I don't want to be reminded I'm getting older." You know what I'm
No.
saying? Like, I want to be young
Mm-mm.
as long as possible. I tell people I'm young, they be like, "Bullshit."
Yeah. No, you're not.
I remember lying to somebody at work, and I was like, they said, "How old are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm 29." And they was like, "Wow, if you're 29, you must have had a rough life." And I was like, "Damn." And I remember going to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror and I said, "Nah, I don't look old, do I?" So
Mhm.
then I got home and I started asking people, "Do I look old? How old do I look?" And they, "Why are you being random? Why are you asking me these dumb questions?" Somebody told me I'm old as shit.
Yeah.
Because you are. And I'm like, I don't think
Uh,
I look old.
yeah. Well, because we're all still that inner child inside of us. And so we all just feel like we never are aging. I always
Right.
joke, I'm like, people be like, how old are you? And I'm like, I got to do the math because I don't keep track, like, yeah, I'm not the one that's like, oh, this year's my 40th birthday and this is what I'm doing.
No.
And I'm like, I remember my birthday because my birthday is on St. Patrick's Day. So everybody I joke celebrates my birthday.
Right.
But I'm like, I never know what year it is. The kids are always like, Mom, how old are you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, go get a calculator and do the math yourself. I don't keep track.
Yeah, and that's how I am. But like I said, my your kids they are relentless, and they're heartless at some points because, like I said, he was like, "Dang, when I'm 20, you'll be 60." I'm like, "Bruh,
Yeah. Yeah. Don't do that. No more of
yeah,
that.
don't do that." And I felt like the women that say you should never ask a woman their age. That's how I felt at the time. Like people were like,
Hmm.
"How old are you?" I'm like, How come we asking?" Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
How
saying?
old do you think I am? Let's answer that first.
You know, it's crazy. I say that to people, and they were like, "At your age," I'm like, "What the
No,
It's nothing's safe these days.
no, it's not, sadly.
Or one of the biggest things that give my age away is I can't keep up with the new lingo and all that stuff.
Oh,
And they be talking, and I be like, I try not to say a bunch of around a bunch of people, but I'm like, what that mean? They be like,
yeah.
"Damn,
Uh-huh.
how old are you?" I'm like, never mind, just forget I asked.
I
But I
know we
can't.
had one of my coworkers. She said something to one of our other coworkers who's, probably 20 years older than us, and she just wrote dead, DED, because it was, I guess it was very funny. And then she said that to the older coworker, and the coworker was like, "Oh, I didn't mean that you like the GIF was like some dead fish or something. I don't know." And he was like, "I didn't mean that you were dead. You were this supposed to be this." And she was like, "No, no, that's like a new phrase, and it just means that like I laughed really hard and now I'm dead." And I was like, "I had no idea." And we're
Oh,
only
yeah,
3 years
yeah,
apart. And I was like,
yeah,
well, now I feel
yeah,
really old. But yeah, my kids use all those phrases, and I'm like,
yeah.
you could be,
It's,
I have no clue what words are coming out of your mouth.
it's like I can't remember what it was. Oh, somebody was like 2 or 3 days ago, and it was like, "Click it," and I'm like, "What that mean?" They were like, "How old are you?"
What
Still
is
don't
it?
understand it. No, I still don't really know. Like,
Share.
do you? It's like the little. There's a little emoji like they send on text with it. It's like they pinching something, and everybody's doing it now. You go on Facebook, they do it, and they be like, "Click it," and I'm like, I still don't understand that. I'm like, whatever. Or the word Riz. I don't know if that it reached where you at, but Riz. I'm like, what's
Oh,
Riz?
yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, so
I
you heard,
did know that one. My kids are now into cap.
oh my god,
Like,
cap it. I hate it. I
they
fucking hate it.
I'm like, "You don't get to use those words with me anymore because I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm not gonna feel stupid because my 11-year-old is being like, 'Cap, mom,'" and I'm like, "What does that mean? Just use real words." And he's like, "It is a
So
real word." I'm like, "No,
yeah,
it's not."
so this is the thing. Even though I understand certain things now, I still hate it because it's overused. Every two
Yeah.
sentence, it's not even full sentence. You're capping. You cap.
Yeah.
Stop capping.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro. I'm like,
You
I hate
stop
it.
it.
It's so younger people. It bothers me, but to a certain degree, it's when the older generation start
Oh,
using those words. I'm like,
mm-mm.
ain't you too old to be talking like that?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I hate it.
Yeah.
Somebody older than me was like, "Or do you get Rizzy?" I'm like, "Please don't ever say it again." I'm
No, I don't
serious.
even know how. No. Mm-mm.
I can't do it. And people be like, "Man, listen, you live under a rock." I'm like, "No, I don't." I
Mm-mm.
just
No, I
refuse
just,
to talk like
yeah,
that.
I was gonna say, I just know English. Thanks so much.
Yeah, but yeah. So
Mm, mm. Looks like we lost him.
oh, guys, that's the first time that ever happened to me. But yeah, my battery on my computer died. Um,
Hello.
yeah, my battery died. I looked and it said I had 12 minutes. So I'm like, I'm good. And then it just died on me. That's the first time that ever happened to me. I thought I was gonna be able to make it, but anyhow, uh, I don't even remember what I was saying at this point. It's great though. I will conclude today's episode. We hope everybody that's been watching, whether that's the live or on the replay, I hope you got something out of it. Continue to share, like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. The channel is definitely growing. The last time I checked, we was at 1.2 thousand subscribers, so that's big for me. So that's a lot of
Awesome.
stuff. The way I promote this, like on Snapchat, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. 'Cause, we talk about the younger generation because I never owned TikTok or Instagram, but I was like, I got to get my numbers up, and the numbers started climbing real fast when I created the Instagram and the TikTok. So
Oh
it's been helping, so I'm not complaining. But
yeah. Hmm.
so if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate all the love and support from everybody. Keep doing what you're doing. And Chelsea, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on today. And hopefully, I'll have you back on another time. But we're going to conclude for today. And you just enjoy your kids, your family, and the rest of your day.
Thanks so much. It was great chatting, and I hope you have a good Sunday.
I appreciate you.